Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Beyond the Blackboard. I am Ran, as you may know, or maybe you don't know, maybe this is the first time you have come across Beyond the Blackboard. If it is, on this channel we talk about everything education, about all of the things that are going on in terms of the ever-changing coronavirus education system and what you should be doing in terms of the grades you're going to get and your futures, as well as general advice around study, and other things as well, more like lifestyle stuff as well. If that sounds useful, please do hit that subscribe button. We've got loads of exciting things coming up, especially over August and September and going forward, because I know that's going to be a real kind of stressful time for a lot of you, and there's going to be lots going on. And what I would like to do is help you guys out as much as possible with lots of different types of content around autumn exams if you're doing them, or preparing for the future in any way, or whatever it is that you need. Whatever type of content is useful for you, basically just do comment it below and I will more than likely make it. Alright, that's the beginning spiel over. In this video we are looking at the 5 biggest mistakes that I have seen over my career in terms of note-taking. What are the biggest mistakes that I've seen students making, as well as myself, that means that the notes are less effective in getting that information into your head so then you can regurgitate it back in the exam itself at crunch time. And there are really easy to fix pitfalls that I myself have made in the past, that I've seen students make as well. So this is for anyone who is starting over the summer holiday, getting a head start for the autumn exams, or maybe you're just trying to catch up for next year. Hopefully these tips will firstly save you a lot of time, and secondly mean that knowledge actually stays in your head and you understand it better. So if that sounds useful, here we go. Alright, note-taking mistake number 1, and this is a doozy, and that mistake is thinking that note-taking equals understanding. Now this is a really common one. Have you ever taken loads of notes? You've got a mountain of mind maps or cue cards or just A4 bits of paper, and then when it comes to the actual exam, or when it comes to being questioned on something, you aren't actually able to give the answer. This is because you are making this really common mistake, which is that note-taking does not mean you actually understand it or are able to apply that information. Now don't get me wrong, note-taking is really important in terms of knowledge acquisition. In order to pass your GCSEs or A-levels, you're obviously going to need to know some facts. But that is what note-taking is for. Facts. It's not for checking or developing application or understanding. There are other ways to check and develop your understanding and application. For instance, summative tests or practice papers or Seneca questions, etc. are really effective, but note-taking itself isn't necessarily meaning that you're understanding that information, and not necessarily meaning that you are exam ready in that field. So always bear that in mind. If you're finding yourself copying down something from a textbook and you're not really sure what it means, and you haven't tested yourself by giving yourself a question on it, perhaps you need to do so. Number 2, putting everything into your notes. Now, every time you're taking notes, whether that's cue cards or mind maps or whatever, I want you to think of this rule. If everything is important, then nothing is important. If everything is important, then nothing is important. Now, what do I mean by that? If you have your textbook and you have your highlighter and you highlight everything in that page, you have essentially made that highlighting completely redundant, because what you're really trying to do is pinpoint the key bits of information that are going to get you marks in the exam. Now to start with, this might be slightly tricky. It's a skill like any other, and your brain needs to filter exactly what keywords or key sentences or key bits of information are going to get you those marks. Because what you'll find in most textbooks is that probably 70% of the words in that textbook or page, maybe more, maybe a bit less, aren't going to get you the marks, and these are the things that you don't want in your notes or you don't want to be highlighting. So start to develop the skill of identifying those key areas. One way that might help that as well is get used to looking at mark schemes. So look at those keywords and key areas that will get you those marks, and then over time your brain will start to just look down a page and filter out those key bits of information, so you can literally just grab it and then put it into your notes. Number 3 mistake is not recapping your notes systematically. Now again, this is a really, really common one, and one I used to do all the time. I used to spend a long time making this beautiful mind map, and then I would lock it away in my organizer. I mean, organizer is a strong word. It was basically just a drawer, and I'd slam it in there and forget about it. And I thought that that was enough in order to retain the information. But in fact, what I was lacking was a system in order to recap that information. There's something called spaced repetition, which you may or may not have heard of. And it shows that over time, your learning will decay if you don't recap it. And part of the learning process is in fact to forget the information and then relearn it. But if you're not recapping your notes that you've made maybe 2 or 3 times, then you can't expect to actually remember it when it comes to that crunch time for the exam. So always set up a recapping system. The easiest way I think to do this is with this amazing app called Adapt. Link in the description below if you want to know more. So yeah, that is number 3. Number 4 mistake is copying and pasting information from the textbook into your notes. Now, if you ever find yourself just copying exactly what it says on the page, what you are doing is something called passive revision. Another way of describing this is rote learning, where you're literally just like Bart Simpson in the beginning of The Simpsons, where he's writing down a different message every time by the teacher for detention. This is a really ineffective way of learning, and you're wasting precious time in doing it. What you really need to be doing is putting that information into your own words. I've put it into a different way on a different video that is in a link above here that you might find useful if you're working towards your exams right now. It's regurgitation. In note-taking, what you want to be doing is regurgitating information. You don't just want to be copying and pasting it into your notes, and the best way to regurgitate it is putting it into your own words. Because by putting it into your own words, what you're doing is essentially forcing your brain to work that information through. You're not just mindlessly kind of writing out what's there, you're taking that information, putting it through your brain factory, and then regurgitating or throwing it back up onto that paper, and that is the way that you learn. It's called active recall or active revision. That is what you want to be aiming for. And the number 5 note-taking mistake is not adding colours or pictures. Now, both colours and pictures are really pleasing to the brain when it comes to remembering things. That's why if you have a cue card, they've done loads of studies on this, if you look at a cue card with an image attached to it, you're much more likely to remember it. And this is something that I'm finding with Spanish right now. I use an app that generates a cue card for me, and I'm remembering if it has like a funny image along with that word, I'm much more likely to remember it. Here's one of my favorites right here. And this kind of makes sense. I mean, if I were to say to you right now the word helicopter, what is it that you think of? Are you thinking of the word helicopter, or are you thinking of an image of a helicopter? Our brain works with pictures. It doesn't work with words. Words are just a crude instrument for us to form a picture in our brain. So if you can ever even draw a sketch of something like to do with a history date, or if there's a word that relates to a French or Spanish word, or a scientific diagram that you can use to help you remember, that is a really effective way. And exactly the same thing goes with colour. If you are separating different bits of information using colour, your brain will love it and remember it much more readily. Alright guys, I hope this has been a useful video for you. As I say, this has been a bit of a just general musing for me on what I've learned in terms of note-taking, but it is very much backed up by science and my own experience. So I hope it's been useful. Next video, I'm going to be doing a more specific video on specific note-taking devices and the ones that I think work. So I'm hoping that's going to help you guys as well supercharge your revision and help you catch up or study for those exams coming up. I'm also going to be doing a load more videos helping you guys through this time in terms of working from home, because I know you're much more by yourselves at the moment, guys. So if you want to stay up to date with similar content, please do hit that subscribe button. And if you want specific science questions, I used to be a science teacher. I also have a TikTok account which is growing very quickly and is a lot of fun to make, and I do daily science questions on that. So if you want to follow me, just look up at Beyond the Blackboard and you will see my face popping up. All right, cool. Until next time, see you later.